One of the reasons why you saw the rise of crack cocaine in our communities, because in the early 80s and the mid 80s, there was activism again in our communities. The children of the 60s were now in their 20s. Ronald Reagan was a president at that time, and there was activism in the community. There was activism on the campuses. The 80s was like a miniature 60s. You had the apartheid campaign. You had the sanctuary movement, because the American trained death squads in Latin America were killing and raping people by the thousands. You had a number of movements taking place in the 1980s. That's when crack hit. But if you go back to the 1960s, you'll see that when drugs came in, drugs began to destroy the movement. And then when you had the so-called hippie movement, who made their calls, turn on, tune on, and cop out, something like that, but it was all about LSD. LSD became like, and taking LSD became, it was looked at as a revolutionary act. Drugs destroyed the movement. They destroyed it. Even the Black Panthers, when they, if you read some of the books of the Black Panther Party, they'll tell you that after a while they had to tell Black Panther members to stop coming to the office high. Because when the members were coming to the office high or drunk, work wasn't getting done. And it was causing problems in the ranks. So the Black Panthers had to come up with a policy. Do not come to the office to do work while you are high. Now, of course, that doesn't go all the way. But even the Black Panthers understood, who many of them took drugs. But they understood that when some of their members were coming and doing the work and they were under the influence, the work was not being done. And it was causing problems within the ranks. They saw it. They understood. That's why there was a serious war taking place in the 60s between the black militants and the drug dealers. Because the black militants understood what this influx of drugs meant. Matter of fact, remember Imam Jamil, when he was H-Rap Brown, and he had went underground because the government was trying to kill, not trying to, they were killing our leaders left and right. And so H-Rap Brown went underground. When did he resurface? Where did he resurface? Why did he resurface? Him and a group of other black militants were robbing drug dealers. They were hitting drug dealers. There was a serious battle taking place between the black militants and the drug dealers, because the so-called black militants understood that the CIA and the U.S. government was allowing these drug dealers to do their thing. Why? Because it was destroying the movement. You can't fight him high, and they know it. That's why drugs have always been used. And we weren't focusing on Malcolm in terms of Malcolm's morals. You hear us talk about how many of us took Malcolm's militancy, but we didn't take his morals. It didn't even dawn on us at that time that Malcolm X didn't get high at all. Detroit Red got high. Detroit Red got blitzed, but not Malcolm X, not El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, but we didn't take that particular aspect of Malcolm. And so many of the activists had to come to realization, those of us in the 80s, that if you want to really get involved in the struggle, when you want to get involved in the movement, what is the role that drugs will play? Suppose we're in the movement and we become very effective in the movement. Then if the government knows that we take drugs, all the government has to do is give us more drugs or plant so many drugs on us, they take us to jail. One of the ways that they're filling up these prisons in this prison industrial complex, and probably the first problem, the major problem in the black community, is the rise of the prison industrial complex, where these prisons are being run by corporations. In order for them to get their money, they have to fill up these beds. And so this whole so-called war on drugs was an excuse to criminalize an entire generation. Drugs. And so for those of you who are activists, those of you who want to be committed to the struggle, you have to come toe-to-toe on your relationship to drugs. And so that's why when the MSU on their flyers, they were saying like an alternative. There's another type of high we can get. We do not have to follow their culture. We do not have to follow them. They're telling you, the social engineers in this country are telling you it's okay for you to take drugs. That's a part of the culture. We are saying, reanalyze that. challenge that. Because those of us who are active, those of us involved in struggle, those of us involved in movement, we look at drugs in a whole nother way. We don't just see it as, well, is it healthy or unhealthy? We don't just see it as, well, maybe it's not as bad as alcohol. Those of us who are active see drugs as a weapon that has always been used by the enemies of truth and justice to destroy movements. And you can be assured that as this thing takes off, and let me tell you something, this thing is going to take off. You can feel the winds. You can feel the winds of it already. There is widespread deceit in this country. The economists are lying because they're getting paid to lie. Many university administrators are lying because they're getting paid to lie. The media is lying because they're getting paid to lie. It is a period of universal deceit and lies. And who was it who said, in a time of universal deceit, it's a revolutionary act to speak the truth? As we see how this movement or this social unrest is building, no one is talking about the real problems. Every president of a campus or chancellor of a campus should come out against the war. Why? Because no connection is being made why the cities are broke. No connection is being made why the universities have to raise tuition. No connection is being made why how all the other social institutions are broke. All this money is being put into the war machine. No connection is made. The corporate media is not making the connection. The presidents and the chancellors are not making the connection. The politicians, most of them, are not making the connection. It is a time of universal deceit. And you can believe that the social engineers in this country, once they see this social unrest build, and they see that the youth will be at the center of it, as they always are, your generation, will be at the center of this social unrest. Don't be surprised that during the whole process, the government decides to legalize marijuana. Because once they decide to legalize marijuana in a time of social unrest, that will be a tactic that they will use to divert the young people. Because how are the young people going to celebrate? If marijuana becomes legal, how do you think young people are going to celebrate? Yeah, they're going to seriously celebrate. But believe me, if they do that, it will be only for one purpose: to get them high again. Get them high. Because they can't fight us high. We have to look at these social engineers. We have to look at the people who are in control. And we have to say, no, you're not going to determine what my lifestyle will be. You're telling us that it's okay to take drugs as long as we take this type of drug. No, you're not going to dictate that. There's someone else who dictates that for us. We're not going to deal with drugs at all. And once you do that, you take away a weapon that they've always used consistently to destroy movements. Here, they be advertising drugs. You ever see them advertise drugs? Like when a new drug hits, it's a new drug. And this drug has killed 4 people. It's like an advertisement. And it gets you high. And it, like ecstasy. They advertise ecstasy. Make people say, wow. Let me check out this ecstasy. They advertise drugs. It's like there's a new drug like a new style. You ever notice that? Like there's a new drug like a new style. That's by design. We can't fight him high. We can't struggle against him high. We have to come up with another way of living. Because in a movement, in a struggle, you have to have a certain type of lifestyle. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that he has to have a certain type of lifestyle. Those who are in the movement for truth and justice must have a certain type of lifestyle, must be committed to a certain type of lifestyle, a lifestyle that the enemies of truth and justice cannot use against us. But once they see that we engage in drugs, the enemies of truth and justice will encourage us, will give us more access to drugs. It's very common. It's used every single day. And so we must be very careful that in this go around, that we do not equate the legalization of marijuana with the struggle for truth and justice. We should not equate the movement to legalize marijuana